Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'm chatting with Chris Baugh. So he is the director of Blinder Films' fantastic new horror, The Boys from County Hell, which is in cinemas now across Ireland and the UK. So thanks so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
So Boys from County Hell is a really fun film, a nice kind of intergenerational spat taken to a supernatural level. So I was just wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about the plot, if that's okay.
Oh, the plot involves a group of Irish workmen, and at the center of those guys is like this bickering father and son called Francie and Eugene Moffat, and they live in a little town called 6 Mile Hill. And the people of 6 Mile Hill believe that there's, that Bram Stoker got the original inspiration for Dracula from their local legend of Abhartach. Whether that's true or not, no one really knows, but they sure believe it, and feel annoyed that no one gives them the credit for it. Anyway, they're building a bypass through the town, and the guys, led by Francie and Eugene, end up kind of knocking over the cairn where the supposed body of Abhartach is, and start to figure out exactly what's real and what's not real whenever it comes to the local legend in the town.
So tell me a little bit about where the story came from. So it's yourself and the co-writer Brendan Mullen. So how do you guys work together?
Well, the story, it's actually funny. It came from me way early in my career when I was writing scripts and stuff and coming up with ideas, wanting to do, I was always a big genre fan. And I wanted to do a genre movie, and I wanted to write genre films. And it was actually, I've talked about this in other places, but it's probably interesting to talk about it here in Film Ireland. I remember seeing I Went Down whenever I was probably 19, 20, and just being blown away by that movie, by how good it was, and the idea that you could do something like that was so inherently Irish, but was also in the architecture of genre. It was a real visceral, fun gangster film that you could imagine playing anywhere in the world. But also the humor was so specific to here, and Gleeson especially in his performance in that is the surly kind of just rugged Irish dude who had these great lines. And I remember seeing I would love to do something like that, but specific to Tyrone or sort of Mid Ulster where I'm from, where I grew up. And that was really one of the sort of major moments for me and early in the career was seeing that movie, thinking about doing films in that kind of way. And then Boys from County Hell was sort of born out of that, because I was fun to do a vampire film, and then the idea of workmen and kind of these roughshod guys who would treat killing vampires in the same way they would treat doing overtime on the site, just with annoyance. I just thought there'd be an interesting story there, and interesting humor to mine out of that. So that was the original sort of genesis of the project.
And what's your partnership like with Brendan? So I'm always interested in the dynamics of sort of that creative process, because it works so differently between.
Yeah, well, we met many years ago, and we, whenever the industry in Northern Ireland was sort of starting to kick into gear, and we were both trying to make short films and write scripts and all that kind of thing. We just had a very shared sensibility. He loved genre as well, and we talked. It was this idea of trying to do these kinds of films here. So we wrote scripts together. I was always going to be the director, and Brendan would produce, and we wrote the stories together. Sometimes we would write scripts together. Sometimes we would just write the story together, and I would go off and write a script, or he writes his own scripts separately as well. And then really sort of approaching 30, I don't know, maybe it was an early midlife crisis. We were both working in other kind of companies, making a good living. And I was working for a kids TV company as a head of development, and he was working as a development guy. And we were just if we're going to do this for real, because we always wanted to make features. So it was we quit our jobs and started 6 Mile Hill. And the idea was, like I say, to do these sort of Irish genre films, or Northern Irish genre films. And the way we work is for any script, we'll sit in the room in front of a whiteboard and sort of break it down for weeks and months. That's what we did with our first film, Bad Day for the Cut. We just sat there and looked at a whiteboard and kind of broke it all down. And then whenever we start writing, we'll usually take sections, so we'll have almost a treatment for the entire film. And then I'll take maybe the first act, he'll take, the last act, and then we'll split the middle or something like that. But usually that's kind of how it works.
Cool. So and a little bit about the genesis. So I'm always interested to when funders come on board. So like, because I think that is like that is the first big, like you have your script, but everyone has a script. But like when you get started with the money, then it's real. Like then it's happening. So when did you guys start of get Northern Ireland Screen Ireland?
Yeah, well, Boys from County Hell, it was kind of a long one. I'll try and be brief about it. But with Boys from County Hell, I wrote it, like I say, years and years and years ago. I wrote the first draft of it. It's very, very different now. But it was always going to be too big of a film, logistically for me to do as a first feature. So what we did was we went off and we shot this proof of concept short in like 2013, just to give a flavor of the humor and the tone and the kind of actors and the characters and all that kind of thing. And we expected to like shoot that proof of concept, go out to Cannes, show it to funders, and they would give us like £3 million to go and make it. That didn't happen, obviously, thankfully, because I don't think we were ready at that point. But so Northern Ireland Screen were on board at that point. They had helped develop the short, and they were helping us, develop the feature script. We showed the short.
They pair you with script editors.
Yeah, they had a script editor. Yeah, they had a script editor, like an in-house script editor, called Steve Brooks, who worked with us in the script, and that was a very helpful process. We went through many drafts of it. And
actually, just out of curiosity, how much changed? Like, what are the areas that you guys? Because obviously, I think that's the same with all writers. Like, you'd have an area that you're like, okay, I have that covered, but then this area needs deepening or structuring or.
I think it was really the myth of Abhartach, kind of discovering that after a couple of drafts and building that into the story and trying to come up with our own kind of mythology based on that, and really just trying to develop the relationships between the characters and specifically the relationship between Francie and Eugene. So that all kind of changed and hopefully deepened over the years. I mean, the first draft had St. Patrick in it fighting vampires, so that gives you a sense of how different it was in the very first draft. But so after the short, we realized we wouldn't be able to just probably do it as a Northern Ireland production. It was too big, so we paired with Blinder Films and Katie Hawley and Yvonne Donoghue down there, and then that's Screen Ireland came on board at that point. And still, it was, everyone kind of liked the project, but it was still a little too high budget to do for me as a first-time filmmaker. So I went off and made another movie called Bad Day for the Cut. Me and Brendan did that through our company, and we had some success with that. And then after we did that, basically, we were able to go out and get that last chunk of money from American funders, from Endeavor Content, through our sort of manager in LA. And it kind of moved quite fast after that. So once you get the first one done, really like the first feature, then the next, it doesn't become easy, but it becomes easier, I guess, to raise money for the next one and get the next one going.
Interesting. So like that as well. Like how long so you had to go take the proof of concept. The script existed before 2013, but your proof of concept short was in 2013. Like what was the timeline then? So you're developing the script in the background.
Yeah, like from 2013 to like now, like I say, me and Brendan, we started our company. We have loads of other projects that we're developing. We made some TV things. I went off and directed some TV. Like when you're an independent filmmaker, you have to have, as you know, like a bunch of plates spinning. Like, so we had all these projects that were going. We were trying to do stuff in LA. We were out there pitching stuff. And Boys from County Hell was just one of the projects on the slate that we always had. But it was always a passion project for me because it was so personal. And, it was one of the first ideas that kind of, we'd had together and worked on together. So it was always there. And we never thought it wouldn't happen. It was just like, it'll happen eventually. It'll happen when it's right, and that's sort of the way it worked. Like I think with any kind of indie filmmaker who's out there, like I would say, always have 3 or 4 scripts, 3 or 4 projects going, because you never know which one's gonna get the green light.
You don't know what's on people's slates as well. If you're dealing with other outside producers, like it mightn't suit them, whatever.
100%, yeah.
So that sounds like a long slog, but that's a labor of love, and you can definitely see that when you're watching it. It's very, say, emotionally truthful and well-rounded, which makes it easy to watch, even if, like, I wouldn't necessarily be the best informed for the genre. Like I'm not familiar with horror films, but I actually think it's so. The people that are into horror, that are really into horror, are so into it. They have like an encyclopedic knowledge. I think it's a really hard one to crack unless you have that kind of wealth of knowledge about it, because the fans are so they're so well informed. Like there's no getting the wool over horror fans' eyes. Like if there's anything that's so how did you navigate that? Like what were your inspirations?
Yeah, I think like you're completely right. Yeah, but at a certain point, I think you just have to, concentrate on like you are inspired by other things. And, for us, like one of the films that we loved was Dog Soldiers, and just the sense of humor in that film, but also the real visceral sort of action sequences and the way the guys kind of reacted to the situation they were in. I love early Peter Jackson as well, obviously, and John Carpenter and all that kind of stuff. And that's it sort of feeds into what you're trying to do. But at a certain point, you just have to like focus on the story that you're trying to tell and hope that connects with people and try to make it as unique to your sensibility as possible. And for me, it was, the biggest thing was like trying to make this feel like it could be in the backwoods of Mid-Ulster somewhere, and these characters sound and act the way people there would if they were involved in this heightened supernatural situation. Because I love whenever I see movies, no matter where they're from in the world, and it feels like there's an authentic, sense of place there. And even like, even if we have some people in other parts of the world who might not understand like everything that Francie's saying, for example, I think people can tell that it's real. We're not compromising on that, and for better or for worse, that was the way I wanted to do it. And I was lucky that I was allowed to do it like that by the financiers and everyone. I feel very, very grateful, like, and lucky that I was able to make the film exactly how I want.
Yeah, and that's actually the good selling point as well, like, is those emotional dynamics, because it does feel very truthful, like between the friend groups, between like that kind of personal and the characters themselves, like so they're obviously based on real people or composites of real people, because they have that sense to them.
Not specific. I think just more like a general kind of like, I wouldn't say that they're composites of like one or two or three people that I know, but it's more just, I grew up from 7 years old in Tyrone, like, and there's a turn of phrase down there and a way of going on that people have, certain people that can just be very, very funny, and a way of reacting to, horror or hard situations, that can be very, very funny and very deadpan. And so I would say it was that kind of character that fed, specifically with Francie, I definitely know guys like that. And, we all do down there. Nigel as well, who's from Tyrone, who's from just outside Cookstown, a little place called Coke. And we just thought, for me, it was always like that. I would just love to see a guy like that in a kind of 80s horror scenario, because I haven't seen that before. He's not a soldier, he's not a superhero, they're not a bunch of teenagers, it's these boys who are really badly equipped to do this. We just thought that would be funny and fun.
I know, but in a weird way, yeah. Like there's that kind of worldliness to someone who has seen it all, like in there, bought the thing, and that thing where it's like, okay, just another day, another vampire, we have to sort this out. That real practicality. Like, yeah, you can see that, especially from that generation, and that Northern Irish humor as well. Like it's so cutting, and it's throughout, which is really enjoyable because it does break it up. Like there's these lovely moments of tension, and then those beats are thrown in, that funny, like, oh, that's my new pole. Like I loved that line, because it was just this throwaway thing where they could just, don't give too much away with the plot, but they could just,
even like lines like that as well. I would say, one thing to say about the casting in the film is Nigel was in the short and was always going to be Francie. So whenever I was developing, like, to go back to the development thing after the short, and we'd found Nigel and cast him, that anytime I was rewriting the script, and there were a lot of rewrites, I could write for his voice, and like, so I even remember that line, the new pole line. I was like, Nigel will kill that. Like, I know how he will deliver that. So it's always fun for me. Like I work with a lot of the same people in the crew and actors and stuff, and I love whenever you kind of get that working relationship going. So then whenever you're writing, you can be specifically tailoring characters and parts and dialogue to the voice of the actor that you're writing for.
And so, and it is good, and it really really works. But I'm just wondering, when you paired with US company, I presume you've your distribution plan for the States. It's not out.
It's on Shudder in
Oh,
America
it's
and
on
Canada.
Shudder. Is it
Yeah, yeah.
subtitled?
There's the option of subtitles. People are using them because I can see the comments on Shudder.
Like, you're not alone. Like, when
Yeah.
things go over to America, because their diction is so pronounced. Like, even the way we say teas, kind of they struggle to hear that, because we
Yeah,
lost T and they have a real t. So like they do struggle with it. But yeah.
But no, but the reaction in America seems, from what I've seen, like online and on Shudder and heard from Shudder, it seems to be very good. Like, and people are enjoying it. So again, like, that's the great thing about streaming, is the option for subtitles are there if you need to kind of know what Nigel O'Neill is saying.
Because it is like it ticks the two boxes of expats and second generation Irish people, and then humor and horror as well. So you do have like a several audiences that you can tap into.
Yeah, and I mean, that wasn't by, like, again, that's not really like, that's not totally by design. It's just like that. This is the kind of, ultimately it kind of comes down to, I think for me and Brendan, is like, what is the film that we would like to see, and what gets us kind of jazzed and excited, and we find funny or exciting, and that's really, we've been lucky with these first two, that's what we've been able to do.
Yeah. So and I was looking at your IMDb, and it's so varied. So obviously you're getting good work directing TV, writing for, like, again, you've loads of writing credits for those kids shows and stuff like that. Could you just give me a little bit of rundown of your own career? Because you said you started off doing shorts with Brendan and kind of doing fun projects like that, and then obviously got into a career section of the industry as well. So how do you feel like that influenced your style and your work?
Well, I would say, so whenever you start off and whenever you come out of film school, you have to work, right? Because you can't, like, I think a lot of people maybe thought, especially, I'm sure I did back in the 90s, like, you'll come out of film school and you'll be 23 and you'll make a movie and you'll be the next Kevin Smith, and you're going to make all this money like really quick. And that's obviously not how it works for the vast majority of people. So while you're kind of learning your craft as a writer and a filmmaker, you have to do other things to pay the rent and keep yourself going. So, like, I was lucky here that Northern Ireland was really starting. It was just around the time that City of Ember was here and Game of Thrones was about to kind of come. So there was a lot of work going on here, and I was working as like a runner and an AD, and I ended up getting a job on the Northern Ireland version of Sesame Street, which was called Sesame Tree. Which was actually really fun, like, just to tie it to County Hell in a very kind of loose way. Like, I got to see and meet the guys from Sesame Workshop who built those puppets, and see the care and the craft that went into that, like, and just that level, that world class level of how good something needs to be, like, but how it tied to kind of my style, like, not so much style, but I got to write some episodes of that show and other shows through that company. And what it really taught me, because at that point I was just writing my own shorts and writing features and stuff, it taught me, like, professionalism as a writer, that you have to hit a deadline, and you have to take notes, and you have to do drafts, and you have to address notes, and you have to figure out what you're going to address and what you're going to, like a job, right? And that was really, really useful, because that kind of, helped me with my own discipline for whenever I was writing my own scripts. Okay, this is a job, and you need to hit a certain amount of pages every day, or you need to have a draft ready by, even if it's just for me and Brendan. So that was probably the biggest thing that I learned from it.
And what would be some kind of hard learned lessons that you would give 23-year-old you now, that you would like to go, okay, well, just know this for going forward? Like, that's obviously one of them.
I think it's going to take a while, it's going to take a while. I mean, it doesn't for everyone, but the average kind of age seems to be, like, for, first time feature is sort of late 20s, early 30s. That's usually how it goes. And you're going to write a lot of, bad stuff that's never going to get filmed, but you got to go through that process to get to it. But I just never lost sight of the goal. For me, it was there was never any point where I wavered from, like, I'm working towards, for Brendan as well, we're working towards our first feature, and we want to do it uncompromised, exactly how, because you only get one chance to make your first one. So again, like with Bad Day for the Cut, we got a complete control of that. Like, it was a very low budget movie, but we got to do it exactly how we wanted, and got into Sundance, and it was a nice vindication of those kind of years going through that process. So yeah.
Going into your own procedures as a director then, like your own creative procedures. So you have your script, you've worked on your script for years, you're delighted with it, you're happy to start going into production. What are the elements that you look at first? Do you go into visuals? Do you go into casting? Like, what's your kind of process?
I kind of go into just the overall feel of it. Like I'll sit down and I'll put like almost a book together, like a style book, and just get an overall kind of sense of what I want the movie just to feel. It's not even like sometimes it's just for me, just for me to look at, and so I can see it in my head, and I know what it's gonna kind of look and feel like roughly. And then like I'm crazy about prep, like, because you have to be whenever you're making low budget films for very little money and you're trying to do like stunt sequences and effect sequences and stuff. So I'll prep obsessively, and I'll work with my DOP Ryan, like, and we'll literally stand in front of a whiteboard for 3 or 4 days and storyboard, like, in stick figures the whole movie, and then we'll bring a storyboard artist in and develop those up and work all that out. So it's very, very clear for everyone how the movie's going to look and feel, and what the shots are going to be, and how the sequences are going to build. Parallel to that, the massive thing for me as well is casting, and I feel like my job is way, like, the casting is done, and whenever people say like, oh, the acting was really great in that, like, or great actors, director, or whatever, is I feel that so much of the job is done before you get to the set by casting it right. And just really being obsessive about thinking about every part, and watching tapes and meeting people and doing auditions and doing chemistry reads and seeing, and so I do a lot of that. Like, I spend a lot of time on it, and hope that it'll work on screen. Thankfully in this we seem to be lucky that we got a cast that felt like they had a good chemistry, both on screen and off screen. So yeah. And then really it's just like it's like, again, I would say to like young filmmakers out there and people who are making movies, like, especially on this kind of budget, do not underestimate the value of prep. Don't think that's the other lesson I would say to my young self. Don't think that you're going to walk on the set and just like, I'm the director and my own genius is going to carry me through the day, and everyone's just going to listen to me, because it doesn't work like that. Like, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have it planned out as much as possible ahead of time. Obviously, once you're on the set, magic happens whenever the actor's there and the camera's there and the lights and things change, but you need to have a really, really good idea.
And actually working with your cast, what's your rehearsal situation like? Is there much ad-libbing? Do you get a feel for the characters?
Yeah, it just depends, I guess, like how much time you have and where everyone is in the world as well, and can you get them there? So, for example, on County Hell, I got a day with Jack, who plays Eugene, Nigel, and Louisa, and that was just in a room reading through the script. Like, we weren't even getting up and blocking anything out. It was just reading through the script and reading through their parts and talking about the characters and trying things out. And that was really fun. And that was whenever I knew, like, all right, these three are going to be great together. And then before the shoot, it was only a couple of days before the shoot where everyone from the cast was actually in Belfast. So we were able to sit down and just have a table read. And that was it. Like, there was no other rehearsal. Other than that, ordinarily it'd be great to have a couple of, a few more days or a week even, but you just don't always get that, especially with budget, because you got to pay for people to come in for a week and all that kind of thing. So you just take as much as you can get and try to use the time effectively, Yeah. And then, I let people ad lib, in something like this, especially whenever you're casting people like Nigel or, like, say, Mick, who plays SP, they have kind of such inherently funny bones anyway. They'll come up with lines or things on the fly that are just, hilarious, and you're better than anything I could write. So I have no qualms about that, like, about letting them ad lib.
And there's a lot of kind of moving parts on a shoot like this. So when was the shoot and how long was it?
Oh, the shoot was May, June 2019. and I think it was 5 weeks, something like that.
So just before everything kicked in.
Yeah, we finished post on it literally like the week before, like kind of COVID really kicked off. Oh yeah, we were planning to do a big cast and crew screening in Belfast, and then the film had got into Tribeca.
Yeah.
So it was going to premiere at Tribeca in New York. So we had I don't think we had booked flights, but we had a kind of plan where, there was I think there was like 15, 20 of us were going to go to Tribeca and have a bit of a rip out there in New York, but it never happened, obviously. But yeah, no. So the shoot was like 5 weeks, and again, like logistically tough because we were out in fields, and you're up against weather and all that kind of thing. And you're trying to do stunts, and you have creature effects and all this, but it was a blast. The crew and the cast were really up for it, and it makes their job easier if I know what I'm doing and I'm prepared and I've kind of laid out exactly what we're doing and everyone's clear on what their job is. And like my philosophy is just hire good people, make sure they know what the film needs to be, what it's going to be, and then just let them do their jobs. So despite challenging kind of weather conditions and things like that, it was still a really fun shoot.
And what was your best moment of the shoot and the worst moment of the shoot?
Ooh, the best moment. I mean, there were a lot. The worst moment was when we were shooting the scene actually with the pole and that whole sequence.
I enjoyed that so much.
Yeah, well, that was like, and again, because we were shooting like, we had 4 hours of darkness a night. We had to shoot that over 3 nights. And one night the weather just came in, the rain came in and literally rained us, and kind of the wind blew us off the set. Like, so we had to just like abandon the shoot. And on a low budget movie, like where every day counts, that's tough. Like, so that was harsh, but we just pulled it back. We got it back. We made it work. Our first AD, Craig Kenny, just managed to figure out how we can, keep going the next day and work it out. And it was again, everyone kind of pulled together. So, I mean, that would maybe be one of the best moments as well, is going from the just how annoying that was and how we're like, oh, fuck, are we going to be able to finish this sequence, to like everyone kind of pulling together and just being logistically smart about it and figuring out how we can get it back. One of the other great moments, I guess, was, we, because me and Brendan were like, we knew we were making a vampire film, but it was going to be low budget. But at the same time, we were like, we just need to make sure that Abhartach looks amazing, because the film won't work otherwise. And so that was tough, again, trying to just figure that out, logistically, financially, whatever. But we had an amazing makeup team, Millennium FX, an amazing actor in Robert Nairn. And so we we started like R&D in that and putting that together way early in prep, that whole prosthetic suit. And then we were actually shooting in the studio, and Robert was there. Robert Nairn, the actor, was there, and Millennium were there to do makeup tests. And they called me in between takes and was like, oh, do you want to come see the Abhartach makeup? And I was like, yeah, let's go see it. Me and Brendan just went over to the cabin, the porter cabin, and like he was standing there in the full makeup, and like I literally almost started crying. Like it looked so good. We were just like, oh my god. And like he walked onto the set to do we had to do some green screen photos, and the whole set just went quiet. Because like in horror films, and again it goes back to your thing about like the horror genre and the fans and stuff, there can be a tendency maybe to skimp on that stuff, or it'll be fine, we'll just keep it all in darkness, or we won't, we'll just skimp on the prosthetic or whatever it is. And so we were really happy that he looked so good. Like, people seem to be responding to him as well, but about how cool he looks, and that's a testament to Robert's performance as well. He's very, very, very creepy in the movie, even though he's the nicest guy in the world when you meet him in real life. And
so it's in cinemas now. And it's on Shudder in the US. So you're getting your feedback now.
Yeah, it's on US and Canada. It's been on there since April, I think. Yeah.
So what has the feedback been like from people?
The feedback's seems to be great on Shudder, and from them in terms of like, the numbers and all that kind of thing. And, from what I I try not to read too much online, because you could go crazy just reading comments, and
like people will just not like anything for the most ridiculous of
but also like even like whether they're good, it's always whether they're good or bad, it's kind of like you can't control that at a certain point. So it's, I mean, whenever there's like a really bad comment or something on Twitter, I kind of laugh, like I'll actually send it to Benny and I'll go, look what this guy said. But you can't. It's nice that people are embracing it, but it's out of my control. I kind of focus on the next one. It's like really like what's the next one? What are we gonna do next?
Even if people hate it, right? It actually has affected them so much that they've gone online and which in itself is provoking a reaction, and they have given it their full attention. So it is almost in a way a compliment to it, because I mean the praise, like it's been kind of, from what I have seen online, it has been kind of universally praised. So you will always get the odd person going, well, I don't like this, I find it too similar to blah or whatever, and people will just have mad opinions, or like just their own opinions based on whatever reason or whatever biases or whatever things they don't like that somebody will not like something. But like my thing is, like, even if you get those vitriolic responses, it has affected them. Like they have watched it and they've
and like I kind of think of it from my own perspective as well, because there's movies that I don't like, I even try not to say I don't like anymore, that just don't work for me, but that other people love. So maybe in my 20s, like, I would have been much more animated about arguing about movies and like, you're wrong and this is shit. And I don't do that anymore. It's like that didn't quite work for me, but I know what goes into a movie now and how hard it is to make a freaking, just even to get something, get it out. So it didn't work for me, didn't land for me, but it works for other people. And that's really like, for the stuff that I make, I can only think of myself as the audience. And then you hope that other people will connect with it, but you can't. You don't know. But
it's about finding its audience and finding the people that will connect to it. But they have, like, the anything that I have seen has been overwhelmingly positive. But I think there's a good emotional truthfulness that will resonate with people. Like, people, I think, especially in their 20s, that fractured relationship with his father, that sort of sense of him finding his own path and things like that. Like, it's very truthful and it definitely resonates for people, but then some people just might not connect with that. And I think Boys from County Hell, it's so sellable, it's so watchable. That will only kind of grow the audience. Like, I know there's so much competition as well, but I just think it's just one of those films that someone will watch and they'll tell a friend, and they'll watch and they'll tell a friend, like even from totally different communities. And it speaks to that, like that rural lived experience of people moving to the big city. Like, that's a universal experience. That would be the same for someone in rural Canada as it would be for, as it is for up north. And those friend dynamics, because they're so truthful and authentic, that like, even though there's that kind of cheeky Northern Irish humor, like it does speak to people. So you can really see it reaching out. But before we go, I just wanted to say, what are the other themes that you're interested in? Like, what are the other kind of meshes that you enjoy?
We just really love genre. So whether it's horror, sci-fi, thriller, like it's always going to have an element of genre for us. Like we sold a pitch to Legendary for a superhero film, which I can't really like give away the details on it, but it's very much our kind of take on that genre. So I don't think you'll ever see us making a rom-com. Maybe someday.
So I presume though superhero, that is a higher budget. Like the amount of effects need to sell that.
Yeah, like, and again, for me, I'm not interested in trying to not that someone's going to give it to me, but trying to chase some massive budget thing at this moment in time. Like a lot of the filmmakers that I kind of love right now, they've went up gradually in budget, and for me, like what's most important is trying to keep as much control and keep as much of my voice in whatever movie I'm doing. And the way to do that is to step up in a gradual way. So like Bad Day for the Cut costs a certain amount. Boys from County Hell costs like 2 times that amount. Maybe the next one will be like 3-4 times that amount. We're not going to be jumping in to try to do like $100 million extravaganza, because and again, not that we're getting offered that, but for me it's like trying to do them incrementally bigger each time, but keep control and keep as much of our keep our voice in there as much as we can.
Boys from County Hell in cinemas now.
Yep.
on Shudder in the US and Canada, if anyone's listening from there. But yeah, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating. I could listen to that all day.
That was a blast. That was good crack.